Hello everyone and welcome. In this recording I'm going to be speaking about this upcoming new moon slash partial solar eclipse in the sign of Scorpio on the 25th of October 2022. Now this is one of the celestial conversations that without a shadow of a doubt is the starter of a larger chain of karmic world events that is basically knocking at the door, not just because of the eclipse itself, because this isn't, karmically speaking, such a very, very intense eclipse because it is rather, far away from the south node, and it would also be a south node eclipse. But at the same time, because Saturn at this moment just went direct, so it means business. It is a very, very strong manifestation energy and reality check at the same time for all of us individually and collectively, and that kind of coinciding with the eclipse. And the ruler of the eclipse, Pluto, is also just like Saturn. It means business. It just went not that long ago direct. It is grinding down on the last degrees of its sign Capricorn, becoming an heretic, so its symbolism is getting stronger and stronger and more intense, just like this eclipse, because such a powerful astrological energy is very not likely to manifest instantly. Its full effects take place under the period of 6 months or perhaps a bit more, but this is an energy of permanent transformation without a doubt. Scorpio and also eclipse, a big reset. But one of the particularities of this eclipse that Venus is hand in hand, 2 degrees, 2 degrees. So it's also, very, very impactful, eclipsing, resetting of collective feeling, how we feel about scorpionic matters in the world, finances, money, the elites, the rich and powerful, how humanity achieves its needs ultimately, in any way, shape, and form, including science, research, the medical world, um, archaeology, and anything buried informationally, in the past. Anything that has to do with the occult, everything that has to do with psychology. But this is where, these 2 degrees of Scorpio and the Sabian symbol is relevant of this. It is not just an individual energy, but quite the contrary. It is very, very collective. So it means psychology applied collectively. Psychology, the ruling planet of Scorpio Pluto at the time of the eclipse, the new moon, well, it holds an in conjunction, a quincunx, quite a, you know, close one, so to speak, with Mars, the ancient ruling planet of Scorpio, being in Gemini, the mind, whereas Pluto is in Capricorn. So whatever structure means to us, mental structure perhaps. But mental structure also means the force power that we exert over our own mental sphere, what it needs to do for us, produce for us, or change for us. So it will also have a very strong mental energy to it, which means communication, news, information, you figuring things out, something being born mentally, the influence of another person, etc., etc., information. But it changes value, it changes feelings permanently. It is also South Node eclipse, profoundly purging. This where something new is born, absolutely. But out of the, let me put it in an artistic way, the rot, the decomposition, like a compost of the old, of the stale. Now, in very religious terms, I would explain this as where the divine has its fine way to force, or how should I say, use evil, violence, cruelty, many times in the way of good, or in the, you get what I'm saying. So, ultimately, the divine rules over everything, even that which is scorpionic, the unclean, the unholy, the not so favorable expression of the spirit, but at times everything has to follow the command, the rules, the order. Everything has to execute what it needs to execute. So if this understood collectively, something that is truly not so nice there, collectively speaking, secret, influence, conspiracies, everything that is in the occult, secret, financial corruption, political corruption, the wool over the eyes is revealed, but at this moment it's under no one's control, because it's like a sewage shooting upwards. You can't hide it anymore, and you better find a good explanation, which will come. Why Mercury squaring Pluto, the explanation, which will not make any sense. So this collectively, but individually as well, what truth, what deep secret, spiritual, psychological, or in any other way comes out to the surface for it to be seen, for it to be felt, for it to produce a permanent change in your mind, in your heart, in your psyche perhaps. What trauma, what old, how should I say, emotion, fear, insecurity, guilt, shame, the scorpionic elements, feeling impotent, feeling powerless, feeling helpless, feeling like a victim in any way, shape, and form, that might come deeply to the surface for it to be healed, perhaps permanently, over the course of the next 6 months, of course, but who knows what cocktail this energy will bring. So we can expect the heaviness to have a purgatory feeling or nuance to it, but something is born out of this. Something new, something powerful, something helpful, and it's based on truth. It's based on that which is going to be revealed. So, for example, an infidelity in a couple, which will reveal something very, very important, which goes way beyond just the moment of infidelity, how something been for years, that heavy stuff. Why am I using this example? Venus in Scorpio can sometimes mean that, but something new is born out of this, a new relationship, an unusual new relationship, or a healing, or a war that ends in peace. So this is where it's up to us, really. The quincunx is in the sky, and one of the most relevant aspects that this eclipse new moon in Scorpio holds is also in conjunction with Jupiter. Now this is in conjunction isn't totally exact. Jupiter is at 0 degrees of Aries, while the new moon at 2 degrees of Scorpio, but still it's operational, and it is very, very suggestive that it's our own personal truth, perhaps, that our soul needs to experience in this incarnation, so it's deeply personal. The mistake would be for us to try and generalize it, or to apply any kind of general wisdom, whatever, to the situation, because that would beat the inconjunction. It's so deeply personal that if we use every element of knowledge, and sometimes that is to surrender in the present, for allowing ourselves to live more, to experience more, for us to be able to make up our minds, our hearts, or whatever it is. But still, if we use a lot of wisdom, and if we know our truth, what our we desire at our hearts of hearts, regardless of what that is, and regardless if that makes sense or not. Desire is desire. What you want is what you want. And when it comes truly from your heart of hearts, then you can, not even you sometimes can question it. And this is the energy of the eclipse. That which is deep within will come out. And you cannot question it. It's but something new will be born out of it, because it will not come to the surface for no reason at all. And it is Jupiterian. You need it. It's in your head. Aries. It's very, very important for your path forward, for your adventure, regardless of which area of life this is in for you. And then Jupiter will very soon go back into Pisces. A moment of big completion. One which can only happen now, because in the next 12 years Jupiter won't come back into Pisces. So now or never. When I say now, the coming weeks, months, not necessarily now, and not even necessarily on the 25th of October at the moment of the eclipse, because there is time. And also, um, another important aspect here is that Mercury trines Saturn. That Saturn which just is going forward and is very serious. It really, really means business, because Saturn himself will not return back here in 30 something years. So Saturn also needs to complete something permanent. And there is this element of something new rising up simultaneously as something old vanishes forever. And Saturn right now is the constructive aspect here. Whatever it does, the strictness, the toughness, the reality check, how it basically handles the situation, whatever is coming to the surface at the time of this eclipse, well, it's doing it to fix it permanently, to give a solution. So it will need, and also Aquarius itself, again, the key word here is collaboration, unity, power of people, people doing it together, not necessarily the Piscean way, as in every soul being one, small communities, small alliances, because alliances will born bigger alliances, and that's how ideals will unite very, very many people. But this Saturn in Aquarius requires small groups and alliances, where people truly, truly find each other in everything. So that is what's on the table. That is what Saturn is completing right now. So it will really, really affect relationship, friendships, situational stuff, sometimes not emotionally, value wise, where different people will need to do different things for their own value system, and that will separate them. But it's not a big deal, because the collective changes, evolves, it is never ever static. No relationship, even friendship, is meant to last forever, especially if there is no conflict in it. Fate, life just separates you. That's not really a separation, is it? That is just a bodily separation. So those kind of events will happen as well. But, let's get to the Sabian symbol, because I find it very, very relevant. Now, I must be honest with you, I'm not quite literally sure what the word was, the keyword, but the big picture is that people building a house together. So a team building a house, basically. And this is something that is actually part of Eastern, was always part of Eastern Europe. This is a tradition where in rural places, and regardless of the country here, because this tradition it was and is the same in every country in Eastern Europe, but in the rural region, where when someone in the community, in the village, let's say, needed a house for any reason, got married, like children got married and they needed a house burned down, or someone needed a house, the immediate friends, neighbors, relatives of that person would come together, and most of the cases, very many other members of the village as well, because everyone knew everyone. And the house was built, of course, quite quickly. And when it was another member's turn, then everyone would show up at the other member, and this was almost like something totally natural. So this team building a house was literally how it used to happen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And a new moon here with Venus. Venus might be very suggestive of the team, because ultimately the team is the love, isn't it? It's Venusian. But the team is also Venus and Scorpio. Um, you kind of owe it. Okay, it's moral, it's love, it's the spirit of community. You want to help the person because they're your part of your community, no question there. But there is also that, but you owe it. You need to do that, like it or not. You're there, regardless of how you feel, what your situation is, what is not. You're there. You know what I mean. Of course, if there's something disastrous that happens in your life, of course you're excused, like no problem there. But debt, the karmic and also moral debt, so that's also part of the team. And it's quite an important, it's not a positive thing ultimately, that non a total conditionality, not unconditionality. Yet Scorpio is alchemy. That condition is sacred ultimately. That condition is something that perhaps humankind learned from the divine forces themselves, to be true to your promise. That which you receive when it was your turn, or is gonna be your turn at one moment in the future, then you also have to give, if you know what I mean. So, vice versa, mutuality. So, and this reminds me immediately that people in their lives who might be struggling with Scorpio debt, any kind of debt, might find a way to exactly release it. It goes away. How, you will see, but it is a really good energy. And usually, there's nothing we can do anymore at the time of the eclipses. We just have to put down the tools or whatever we're doing and just look what happens and then process it and then do something with it. But still, at this time, I would still suggest for us to truly focus on the intent of getting rid of the debt. Whatever that means, karmic, moral, emotional, French, regardless what this means, that to the bank or whatever, there might be a way to get out of it. And this might be an energy which offers you solutions, because ultimately Jupiter, the quincunx with Jupiter, when you believe it, when you need it, when it's important for you, and it makes sense to you internally, subjective justice, subjective, truth, faith, all of that is Jupiterian. It makes sense to you. It works like clockwork. That's all it's needed to make sense to you, for you to believe it, for you to invest every fiber of your being into it, and it works. The solution will come one way or another. Manifestation energy, magnetism energy. And also, this speaks to me teamwork. team building, a house. The house is also suggestive because of Saturn is the house. Pluto can also be the house in Capricorn, because the wrecking ball, yes, but it also builds it up. And from the rubble, you're using the wreckage to as fresh building material, alchemically speaking, of course. But maybe for some people, it will be literal. They wanna renovate their house and they just wreck it and then build a new house, because that would come the best solution, for example. But we will see this on the world stage as well, energetically speaking, karmically speaking, because, as I said, karma, whatever you invested, you get. This quincunxes, the inconjunctions, kind of tell, okay, you get what you deserve, but milk it as much as you can if it's positive. If it's not so positive, the quicker you learn the karmic lesson, the less intense it will be. So, would you come to the conclusion that you were deeply in the wrong and you hurt this and that, whatever you bad you did, which would reverberate deeply in the next 6 months of your life, like truly boil you? Would you come to the conclusion beforehand and you get away? Yes, because you took it in already. You alchemized it, so the lesson doesn't have to come in a harsh way. Venus, mercy. And Jupiter also mercy. If we want to see it that way, quincunx. Because the quincunx is what we make of it, really. Because just like a holy text, you can interpret it in 10 million ways. There is not just one. Yet, even in the interpretation, there are certain elements which are the same for everyone, because otherwise. So this is the only thing that truly helps. But and it's also good for, regeneration, rebirth. And the sign of Scorpio has a very strong genetic side of it. Certain talents, certain skills that you never even thought you had, or that you were at anti-talent, like really bad at, all of a sudden are not the same anymore. Because this eclipse slash new moon can purge out what we might call anti-talent, as in karmically being very, very bad at something. Even it's so profound that even that can heal. In a mysterious way, of course, but that's also the domain of Scorpio. But at the same time, new moon, the new beginning, and this phoenix energy, some needs your own or part of a community, team, family, whatever, can help you create skills, effectively birth new talents within yourself. This is that very powerful in the positive sense. In the not so favorable sense, as I said, very, very karmic. So this is where it's not really up to just your morality. For example, if you hurt certain people or not really appreciate people because you're justified by a morality or a way of life, this is the moment when, it's reality check. Ideals, morals, what you learn from others don't matter at all. This is where team. So, there's an element, especially as I said, as a karmic discharge, where it really doesn't matter how we justify certain actions that we have done in the past to ourselves, because the universe will not have any of that. And this is one of those moments rare moments when it's really not just up to this Jupiter, really. It's also where this Neptune plays a very important role. But, anyway, another energy that this new moon will hold an outer sign conjunction with asteroid Humi at 29 degrees of Libra. That's a very strong regenerative creational energy. This is where, if there's wounding here, or if there's, it's almost like leeches sucking out the bad blood. It's needed. The release is needed. The release of the negativity is needed. Now, of course, financially speaking, and our financial behavior and our collective value system wise, this might be deeply impacting because of the Saturn immediately. Something happens that truly stirs us, collectively speaking, where everything changes immediately. Like, immediately. Feeling, value, morality, spirituality wise, collectively. How what that is remains to be seen. But when the feeling changes, everything changes, especially collectively. And this is where the collective psyche, the collective, psychology used collectively. What will happen in that sense? And financially speaking, what will be born out of this energy? Because yes, it's a new moon, but it's an eclipse, so Venus is also in the dark. Venus is also eclipsed. The total eclipse of the heart. That song from Bonnie Taylor, well, something like that. Yeah, it's gonna be something like that. But as I said, the healing power of this, and if we make it our own and use it for healing purposes, it can be a miraculous energy. Also, alchemically, this is where what this energy of the eclipse unlocks, pulls to the surface, is what I call the ancient benevolence. This is where the aspect of the universe which effectively finds benevolence, a saving grace, a happy ending, and it is still gonna be okay even if it seemed like it wouldn't. That aspect of it where sometimes it just cheats in the name of good. Maybe that is the power that actually humankind from its very origins was attracted to. Maybe that is what formed to be the spirituality of different people, cultures, and the ancients, etc. But before all, there was just one ancient source of a benevolence, which all of us perceived our own way, and it was our perception that divided it, not necessarily its own division, if that makes sense. Now, if that gets reactivated in the world, how will it cheat in the name of good? How will it heal us in a surprising way? What miracles could be born under this energy? Because we know that an eclipse in Scorpio will definitely represent bread and butter for the opposite, scavenger energy, where it doesn't matter who falls, friend or foe, free resource for certain scavenger energies out there. So yeah, we're also gonna be seeing great betrayals on the political stage and on the world stage, because that's the team building as well. Great betrayal. When you want the house to collapse, well, you go to the enemy or the friend who you want to sabotage, and you collapse it before it's even built, before it's even finished. You know, you go to the building stage and collapse it then. Why bother to have it raised? So we'll see great betrayals out there. It is going to be very, very interesting. But still, I would like to highlight the healing, the regenerative, the phoenix, the healing, the impossible side of this energy, psychologically speaking, And maybe, for example, I am in so very many ways a person who has permanent scars. Now, if this could touch, I challenge, I provoke it even. So, chances are it won't, but for some lucky soul out there, it will. It will, because it just needs your Jupiter to pump in all of the strength, and the miracle happens. You heal, the impossible in a good sense happens, you're not lost anymore. Good things can happen. And Pluto gives us the power to do focus on what you want. You can focus on vengeance and deconstruction and that the doom and gloom part, but you can focus on whatever it is that you want. You can kind of dream it, wish it, do it. Use all the strength of your being towards it, because the game is on. Anything can be allowed at such a moment. So this is how the power of people, the power of faith, or the positive aspect of the occult and mass psychology, when a lot of people desire miracles, for example, the great good, great benevolence, or what I refer to as the ancient benevolence. If a lot of people trigger that, at the same time something good happens and it will not be able to be stopped. So let's see how this energy will permanently change our normality, because we had a lot of aspects doing just that the past couple or even more years. So in that sense, perhaps it's nothing new, but in the sense that it will blow our minds, Mars and Pluto, that's also very, very certain. So thank you so much for listening. I hope this was helpful. And until next time, bye for now.